أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. Last week, I had started a discussion on leave a legacy, and legacy includes so many other important aspects of inheritance, wasiyat, and so many other things. But while we were discussing legacy, I had submitted that after completing discussion on legacy, I will inshallah start discussion specifically on the last will. Last will, as it has been ordained in the Quran, and then the law of the land where we are living, in any other country where we are living. But at the end, there were certain questions where I thought better to remain silent because the questions were raised on different aspects of the subject. And it covers not just one aspect of wasiyat or will, but it covers many other aspects. So today, I will first try to respond to those questions altogether. But if still there remains any other question, then we can tackle at the end or maybe next time. So I am starting with the response, collective response to all these questions together. And in this connection, I would submit that we must distinguish between and understand the philosophy of these three things together. One is tarka. Quran uses the word tarka. The other is wasiya. Quran uses the word wasiya. And then the other is virsa. Quran uses the word virsa, varasa. So if these three concepts are understood, then we will be able to understand the legacy. Legacy covers all these aspects and even more, even more. But these are three fundamental things we must understand: the philosophy of tarka, virasa, and wasiya. Today, I will concentrate on one ayat, but before that, I'm just pointing out here that, for example, when there is a mention of quantum of shares, there is a group of ayat which refers to the quantum of share for the male and female. And then there is a mention of actual payment, actual distribution. There the relationships are used. Aulad, walidan, and so many other relations which are covered in this subject of inheritance. And then we find that there are other ayat which in fact pertain to wasiyat. But in this context, while we are discussing wasiyat, at one place we find that there is the word wasiyat is also used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for himself. Yusikumullah. When we discuss our wasiyat, we try to be pertinent, we try to be particular that we have to do this, and we try to understand. But we, in fact, give little preference to understanding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means when he says, Yusikumullah fi awladikum li zakar misal hazanil unsayan. Hazal unsayan. Now, here my point is not discussing the entire ayat, but my point is that where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers it to himself as his wasiyat, then we have to be more careful, even more careful than when we are careful about the wasiyat which we are making. This point just mentioned at the beginning. I'm not going to discuss these ayat, but I'm pointing out this is not one ayat where we say that we are discussing inheritance, we are discussing tarka, or we are discussing wasiyat. We have to discuss all these ayat together in tartil, and we have to understand the whole subject, and we also have to understand the philosophy. So I have grouped these ayat together. If God willing, when there is time, sometimes we may discuss these groups of ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word wasiyah. And then the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word fariza. And then the ayat, group of ayat, tartil of ayat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning the relationships. And then there is another group of ayat where we find that there are certain other instructions, for example, regarding infaq. And then beyond that, there is also word maruf used. So all these things have to be discussed also along with the subject which we are discussing in this context. But today I'll be concentrating particularly on this ayat. So I'm now going to this ayat, leaving all other ayat in the meantime. And this is here from where I want to start today to respond to the questions last time which were raised. For example, it was said that what is the logic behind sharing inheritance with the parents? So for example, it was just a question to discuss further the rationale, to understand it more, to expose it more, to explain it further. So it was a good question. And there were certain other questions also. These ayat number 32, 33, 30, and then these are the ayat of Surah An-Nisa. And then along with ayat of Surah 33 and Surah 19, we have to understand this ayat, then we'll understand the philosophy of other ayat which I mentioned in the beginning. The philosophy of Zakar wal Unsa, that why there is a difference in the shares of male and female, and then we will understand what is the responsibility and why there is a responsibility for sharing with the parents, and different shares for the parents, mother and father, there's a difference, or daughter and mother, there's a difference, wife and daughter, there is a difference, why there is a difference between daughter and brother, daughter and son. Now let us concentrate on this ayat. Usually we ignore this ayat when we discuss inheritance. But I think without understanding the basis of philosophy, we cannot ignore this ayat. And then the central, the pivotal ayat which contains the philosophy of inheritance, wasiyat, and tarka, this is the ayat, that is ayat number 33 of Surah An-Nisa. But again, I will submit that even we study ayat 33, we cannot study it in isolation. We'll have to study from ayat number 32 to at least ayat number 37 of Surah An-Nisa. That pertains the other after 34. There are other subjects which are covered, including talaq and other things. But today I will concentrate mainly on this. It was just as a preamble that it's a very intricate matter. All these ayat are joined together. There's a requirement of understanding in tartil. This ayat tells us, 32, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we should not aspire, or we should not have a greed about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given of his fazl to some people more than the others. More than the others, the fazl of Allah, we should not have tamanna for that. We should not aspire for that. We should not become greedy. And we should not have hasad for that. There are different aspects. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the men have naseeb, portion, their part or their portion, whatever they earn, whatever they spend, whatever they earn. Kasab is the basic word in the economic system of Islam. I will give an example. For example, in America, when you apply for a loan, or you apply for certain other things also, it's not just the loan or for the mortgage, but it is just one example that they don't count your income from your rent as you are earning. Even if you are earning little from your salary, for example, and you are paying tax on that, that is your earning, that is your kasab. The amount which you are getting from rent, it is part of riba. Money, earning money, that is not counted towards your earning as the basis to calculate the basic points. And on the other hand, we say that we are practicing Islam, but we don't understand what is riba. Riba is rent seeking. This is one of the English translations of riba. That riba means exploitation. It means rent seeking. It means anything which is not through kasab, which is earned by the money. Money is earned by the money. It doesn't have kasab. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that your nasib for the men is through kasab, and even for women, the nasib, the portion, and there is accountability for this, is also from kasab. And in this regard, when you are talking of fazl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that instead of having any tamanna, any competition in the negative sense, any hasad in the negative sense, or any greed in the negative sense, that why somebody has been given fazl Allah more than me, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you pursue that from Allah. You pursue that fazl from Allah. So you have to make an effort, you have to request God, you have to beseech. But here, Saul is not just asking or requesting or making dua. Only dua is not the solution. If dua was the solution, then there would have been no problem in Gaza. With dua, there is a pursuit, and pursuit requires effort. And effort may sometimes require sacrifice, hard work, kasab, not just rent seeking, not riba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that then pursue fazl from Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowing here alima, but it has been related to ilm, it is related to science. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has all the sciences. When you pursue it with the sciences of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which He has created, and you do your kasab, then we will get your nasib. You will not have to fall, you will not have to pursue any greed, but you have to pursue Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the right path. Now, keeping this in mind, nasib and kasab, these words will appear again. Nasib will, particularly nasib, it will appear again. But this word, this ayat is now, I think, the crux, the philosophy of the subject of inheritance, wasiyat, and tarka. This ayat. And we cannot understand this ayat unless we understand the term mawali. This is my view. You can differ with me, but you can conduct your own research. But this is my considered yet humble opinion, with all the humility, that we cannot understand inheritance without understanding this ayat, and in this ayat without understanding mawali. And this will give the reply to the question raised last time, that why we should share with the parents. Here the word kul has been used. Wali kul, for all. Kul refers to what? Wali kul who? Kul who? Kul, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, le rijal, wali nisai, all of them, wali kul, in this ayat, in continuity from 32 to 33, wali kul, for all the men and for all the women. Wali kul, for all of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using the word jal. This jal is used when Adam was created, Adam was upgraded. Jal, now, we have designated, we have created an institution. Jal has been used. Adam was made the administrator of the earth, of this planet. Insan was already there. You make somebody an institution. You designate him as the deputy commissioner, as an administrator, as a manager. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that for all of them, the men and the women, for all, وَلِكُلِّ, we have designated, we have appointed, we have made the institution of Mawali. What is Mawali? Mawali is, I'll show the lexicon also. It is from the root word walaya. Wali is also from the same root. But Mawali means that who has been given inheritance with the responsibility, I'm repeating, and the responsibility also with authority. But here, since it has been combined with responsibility, the authority here, the authority of Mawali is not independent. As the authority of Mutawalli in the Waqf is not independent. It is controlled, it is limited by the authority delegated by the person who is giving this authority. The deceased who is making this will, he has delegated some authority, he has appointed a Mawali, and he has given that authority. It is limited by the conditions set by the deceased before his death when he was preparing that, dictating that will. And furthermore, it is restricted by the ordinance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these ayat and the other relevant ayat in Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that for all of these, Rijal and Nisa, Walikul, I have appointed, I have created an office of Mawali. Mawali is an office. It is a sacred office. It is a trust. It is a trusted office. It is a very interesting sentence. Mimma tarak. This institution of Mawali has not been created just out of nothing. It has emerged, it has come up, mimma tarak. What has been left as legacy, as tarak, out of that tarka, mimma, out of that tarka, an office of Mawali is created. The office of Mawali is therefore restricted to the tarka. It is different from the wali, the guardian or the custodian in the family. It is specifically for the property, and when we will discuss the law of the land, then it will become very clear that what the Mawali means. And in the Western, in the American system, they have further divided the authority of the Mawali, and they have made it more transparent, more dependable, and they have further divided it like a division of labor. So it is an institution, not just one person. Mawali has become an institution. And the language of Quran also tells us that it is an institution, the way it has been made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mimma tarak. It is only for the tarka. Out of tarka, it has been created. And for what? The tarka, which tarka? Tarka of the walidain, waldan, and tarka al-walidain. It is in continuity. Taraka al-akrabun and taraka al-lazin. This al-lazin is continuing. Taraka al-walidan, taraka al-akrabun, taraka al-lazin. This al-lazin, who are these al-lazin? I may very humbly submit to say that in our jurisprudence, in our inheritance, this al-lazin we have completely, totally ignored. That is why we have not developed the jurisprudence of inheritance for the 21st century. And inheritance as our jurisprudence in the jurisprudence of inheritance has not become the instrument of distribution of wealth, and it has not become the instrument of alleviation of poverty. It has rather become an instrument of keeping the people in poverty and creating classes, some powerful classes who grab all the property after the death of somebody in the family. Wallazina, tarakal wallazina, allazina, who are these allazina? Akadat aymanakum, who incorporated their corporate covenants, their corporate uh, promises, or any other contract which they had created. Kindly, you study yourself, make a research on this, that when the person dies, the most powerful person in the Muslim family, he grabs everything without looking at the things that, for example, the person had created a corporation, he had created a company, he had created a partnership, he was already working with somebody in a contract. Do we take all these things first? As we proceed further, we'll see that at many places where Dayan has been used, why that was used. And last time we were discussing shares, we were discussing patents, we were discussing other things. And here we have ignored the entire concept of the ufu bil wakul, even after death. This is the liability. In simple terms, that tarakal walidan, tarakal akrabun, and tarakal lazin, who were in the contract, who were in the corporate, who had incorporated their business or partnership or contract or anything. Walazin akadat, akad, who had tied a knot of any promise, who had tied a knot of any contract. That has also to be brought in. Not only brought in, but here more responsibility has been placed. I said Mawali is a position of responsibility. Here, for Atu Hunna, Atu Zakat, it is to deliver. It's not that they should run about you. They should come about you. They should be begging you. But here, immediately, as soon as the death takes place, sit down. First of all, take out the liabilities. Even the dower of the wife, if it was not paid, even the balance in the even the remaining salaries, utility bills, funeral expenses, everything has to be first. The liabilities have to be taken first. And here I may point out one thing more. For example, the another ayat says that when you are making a chart for distribution of inheritance, kismat, word kismat has been used, charting, you are charting. And in that Hazaral, and on that appears, some appear kurba, besides akraba. For example, sons, daughters of cousins, extended family. They appear there, the sons appear there, the grandchildren appear there, but they're not getting the share for because of anything. Well, I'm going into details. You have to consider their position also in Quran prescribes. You give them something. But here something more. In another ayat which I said, Maruf, that is something more there also. But here it is that if the deceased person was in any akad, in any promise, in any thing which requires ufu bil uqud, then it is the duty of the mawali to deliver. For example, the deceased person had made a promise to a student that you go for study for 5 years to medical and I'll finance you. It was on his promise that he went to study finance, his son of the brother or his sister or any other related person or any other person, he went there. Now he's in third year. Now the man has died. Should he leave these studies? Should he start begging? What should he do? So here, Allazin akadat aymanakum fa'atuhum nasibhum, their portion also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing it as a nasib, as a portion, their nasibhum. And their maruf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another ayat calls it the known, kal malum in another ayat. And for all this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say that I'm Shahid. He says I'm Shaheed. Internally, intrinsically, I'm watching this. I'm witness to it internally. I am internally watching through your minds, through what you are thinking, through your actions, what your hands are doing, what your eyes are seeing, what your ears are hearing. I am Shaheed. Inna Allah kana ala kulli shayin shaheeda. If we don't understand this ayat in the inheritance, distribution of inheritance, then we will not understand why we are doing anything as prescribed by Quran. For example, when I was judging the Shariat court, people used to raise questions why, although the Quran says that you don't give any portion, any nasib, anything to the grandson if the father has died. If the son has died, if the son has died, then the father is not obliged to give anything to the child of that son, that is a grandson. This is usually the concept. But if we read all these ayat in tartil, the philosophy of these ayat, then we cannot ignore it. And I think very rightly, the ulama in Pakistan, they agreed at one point. And there is a law now in the Muslim family law, section number 4. It has prescribed that the grandchildren are entitled to the share which their father would have got if he was alive. Section number 4. If anybody wants to challenge something in Pakistan and under this law and similar laws, but in different ways, compensatory laws there, I will say, not as direct as in Pakistan, but in certain other countries, in Syria, in Egypt, in other countries, in Arab countries, in other Muslim countries, there are indirect compensations for these grandchildren also whose father have died. Now, in another ayat, which pertains in fact to the children who are adopted, they should not be given any name other than the father's name. That is the background. Here also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they are your mawalikum. Although they don't inherit. In adoption, they don't inherit. But in matters of responsibility, if the son is not discharging the responsibility, daughters are not discharging the responsibility of the old mother or old father, then this mawali, the adopted one, in fact, he has been given the responsibility and also the authority to deal with these matters. And at another place, I think this ayat further clarifies what is mawali. Zakaria alayhi salam at one place makes a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he says, give me a waris. He uses the word waris. But at another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Zakaria alayhi salam tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I'm afraid of the mawali. Who will be mawali after me? Because I have no son, I have no daughter, I have no offspring. So those who will become mawali, those who will take over, I'm afraid of them. They will not discharge their responsibilities. So Zakaria alayhi salam was not demanding a person to administer his property, take over his property. He had certain responsibility to discharge. He had the responsibility of the church. He had the responsibility of the deen, of the religion, of the mission, of the revolution, of the reform, which was taking place under revelation. And he was asking for a mawali, a position of mawali. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a son. But he was asking for, at one place, he was asking for waris, and at another place, he uses the word mawali. Now, this is the meaning from the word wali. It signifies an office. It is an office. It is a ministry. It is a court. The Western legal systems have turned it into an office, into a court, into a system. But in our countries, in our systems, we have not developed our jurisprudence. We have not created this as an office, as a ministry, as a court. There, these matters, when the person dies, are decided by the office as mawali. They deal with the tarka. I'll explain in detail, but very in simple terms, I'm explaining here, and it has the authority. Mawali is an office, not just a person, so that there's no clash of interest, and it is an authority. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him authority. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say that وَلِكُلِّ جَعَلْنَا their son, their daughter, their relation? That is not mentioned here. And then these are different meanings, but you will find that there is a common string running, command or authority over a charge and a charge, superintendence to preside over something, the governance, the governor, lord, commander, prefect, prince, king, administrator, manager, you give him any designation, he has to discharge. If this authority, this work has been assigned to him, that of a mawali. He can be anybody, mawali. Now I come to try to explain through the terminology which is used in America, the law of the land. What is the legal will? We will discuss will again when we will come to discuss will. We are not discussing will today. I'm just responding to questions because intricate questions were asked. They were all related together. Legal will is not just somebody's private will. It has legality. As soon as a person, whether he's dying or whatever whatever position, he says that I have made a will, then it assumes a legal status. And it is enforceable at law. Court will not refuse. If somebody takes a will to the court that my father made this will, they will prove it. The proceedings will go to prove it. Yes, they will prove it. But so far as the enforcement is concerned, they will enforce it. If it is proved that yes, it is the will of that person, it is the responsibility of the court. Here the court enters the shoes of the mawali. And the mawalis, Allah subhanahu say, fa'atu, deliver. That the court has to deliver. And this is, last will is also called the last testament. Because in the testament, like a testament, it testifies certain facts. What is testament? This is described. I'm not going into the legalities, but it is described sometimes, not sometimes, but many times, or usually, when you look at the last will which is made and registered in any court. And by the way, I may mention here that the Supreme Court of Texas, they have prepared a uniform, one format of the last will, so that people don't have to run here and there for the attorneys. You can just download the last will format approved by the Supreme Court of Texas. And there it is made, it's like an objective test. You just fill the columns, fill the boxes, and then it's very easy. Because it is like as a mawali, the court has taken the responsibility. It is not left to the strong person in the family who has a clash of interest and he takes over everything. It is a testament also. And who is a testator? The testator is the person who has made the last will. But here the word is used executed also. Testator is the person who has made the will and he has executed it as the last will. Execution, I'm not discussing, talking about the execution part of it. When the will is executed by the executor, when the testator dies, That is the job of the executor who is appointed by the testator. Here, if the will is made, for example, I made a will, make a will in my heart, in my mind, and I don't write it down, I don't tell anybody, I don't call witnesses, as ayat number 282 of Surah Al-Baqarah requires me. If I don't do these things, my last will may fail. It will be difficult. It may become difficult for the court to establish, prove the will. The will has to be proved. It is the responsibility of the court to prove the will if it is challenged. If it is not challenged, everybody is happy with that, then there's no need to go to the court. And then it can take effect only at the time of death. Time of death of the testator. Testator is the wasi, musi, who makes the wasiyat. This is the feminine of the testator, and this is called testacy. Means the status of being tested, that is having executed a will. If I make a will, then my status is that I'm tested because I made a will. And this condition is called testacy. These are simple terms, but when you start filling the form, that format, and when these terms appear, one gets puzzled. There's nothing difficult in these terms, but the meanings are there. These are available, very simple, but I'm just trying to explain here also that if these terms appear, you should know. Intestacy means the status. If I don't make a will, then it means that it is a state of intestacy, that I have not made any will. If a person dies and the question of inheritance is raised, then the court will ask, is the person in the state of testacy or intestacy? He is intestate or he is tested. If I have not made a will, it means that it is intestacy. I'm intestate. If the will is not made, even then, the mawali, court, administration, or you give any name. Administration is the technical term here. State of a person who dies intestate, who has not made a will, undergoes administration rather than probate. Probate, I'll explain. Then, if there is a will, there may be probate. Even without that, one can go for probate. But if there is no will, it will be administration rather than probate. But don't get confused with this. We will discuss these things when we discuss the will and other things. Here, I'm just going to respond to the questions which were raised here. Executor is a person or institution appointed by a testator to carry out the terms of their will. He's called executor. Now, in the beginning, I had said that the institution of mawali has been further divided as there's a division of labor in the Western laws, in the legal systems. In America, for example, they have divided the responsibility of the mawali into different parts. That he becomes an executor, he can become a court, and he has different things to do. They have all divided, made it easy, and all combined together make an office. It is maybe called an office. Executor is a person or institution I had used these words not from my mind. I had used these words because these words are used in the legal system of America. And these are not in contradiction with the institution of Quran, which Al Quran has created. The only thing is that our mullahs, they don't correlate and don't understand. They don't understand these things. The executor is appointed by the testator to carry out the terms of the will of the person who has died. Executor is named in the will. by the testator, by the person who is making will. He has the authority from the lexicon I had shown you, from Lens lexicon I had shown you, from so many dictionaries, that he has the authority. Mawali has the authority. It is not just responsibility, it has two roles to play. To distribute estate. What is estate? Estate is the property or money or any legacy, which includes all these things which I had mentioned last time. Estate. To distribute the estate, it is called estate. That is why I made it, placed it in inverted commas, according to the instructions in the will, and may apply for probate. But if everything is not clear, there is a problem, it has to go for probate. But it's better, it's always required. In fact, it is better to go to the court for probate, so that in the family, the strongest person who has clash of interest with the property, in the property, who has interest in the property, he should not grab everything for himself. Now, with this, I'm stopping here because the probate will require a bit more explanation. Then, Allah willing, we will take it up next time. If you also think that we should discuss it, we'll discuss it next time, inshallah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzat amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت فإنك يا ربنا تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى أنوار العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us, shower us with your blessings, increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves garden from heaven and grant them the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. We have our son Ma'raj, our daughter Aisha Wani, and many others. Oh Allah, grant all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them, and make them righteous. Oh Allah, grant us the power and the ability that we may be grateful for the favor you have bestowed upon us and our parents, and that we may do righteous deeds that are pleasing to you. Oh Allah, we seek from you all of the good, whether we know it or we don't. And we seek your refuge from all evil, whether we know it or we don't. Oh Allah, we have many of our brethren who are suffering from oppression and injustice. Oh Allah, heal their trauma, protect their helpless, and grant them lasting peace and prosperities. Oh Allah, we ask you every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.